The reality of Kevin Durant's NBA career and where we're at in terms of his legacy, I should say. Kevin Durant's going to be 36 years old heading into next season. And the reality is time is running out for Kevin Durant. And about a year ago in 2023, I asked the question, have we seen the best of Kevin Durant? Has Kevin Durant peaked as a basketball player? And the answer to that question that I had was yes and no. And what I mean by that is it's very clear post Achilles tear, every single season, despite being one of the 10 best players in basketball pretty easily every single season. And in fact, I felt that when Kevin Durant came back from the Achilles tear, he was still arguably the best player in the entire NBA. Now, obviously, guys like Giannis and Nikola Jokic kind of stepped up their game. But Kevin Durant, I felt that a while ago when he was in Golden State and early in Brooklyn, you could point to him and say, yeah, best player in the entire NBA. And obviously in Oklahoma City, he was in that conversation as well, winning an MVP when LeBron was in his prime, yada, yada, yada. You get the point, I should say. But getting back on track, I said yes and no in terms of answering that question because it's pretty clear Durant has been a lesser version of himself every single year since the Achilles tear. And he's well past his physical prime. Like, he doesn't have the same burst that he once used to have. Not quite as quick, not quite as fast, not quite as, just being athletically in his prime. And that's normal. Every single athlete declines in that type of way, at some point. So we're just probably going to have to accept the fact that Kevin Durant, is, despite putting up all-time great numbers still. I mean, what is he at this year? 27 points per game, like 53% shooting from the field, over 40% from three. Like, Kevin Durant is still an elite-level superstar. I believe that. But he's a lesser version of himself. But also, I said, I don't think that that's necessarily something we have to have a lot of concern about because I still believe Kevin Durant, despite being a lesser version of himself, I think he has at least one more great final finishing act left in him. Meaning, basically, I believe Kevin Durant can still have a kick butt, wire to wire, great postseason run from start to finish, despite being a lesser version of himself. But when it comes to Durant, and specifically Phoenix, like, time is running out. And when we look at Kevin Durant in Phoenix, we're 2 years in, and it seems like Phoenix has slowly but surely gone kind of backwards a little bit, Was Phoenix favored to win the title this year? Adding Bradley Beal to their roster, losing a guy like Chris Paul, losing a guy like DeAndre Ayton. But again, you bring in Jusuf Nurkic to kind of patch that up a little bit. Maybe he's an upgrade over DeAndre Ayton. You sign a couple of guys like Eric Gordon. You trade for a guy like Royce O'Neal. You round out the roster a little bit. Bol seems to be a young player that's kind of coming into his own. I do believe Bol should have a more extended role in Phoenix going forward. But it seems like Phoenix has slowly but surely gone backwards a little bit. Like, early on, it was like, oh, you plug in Kevin Durant to the Phoenix Suns and they can't lose. But they run to the Denver Nuggets in the playoffs. Chris Paul gets injured. It seems like they just flatly do not have the depth around Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, despite Kevin Durant and Devin Booker both putting up historically great numbers, and they lose. And this season, it seems like, for whatever reason, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant together, they just didn't necessarily mesh. Now, am I saying it's going to be that way forever? Not necessarily, because I do think that some people are overreacting to the Phoenix Suns' demise a little bit, and I do think that Phoenix has a chance to run it back and be an awesome basketball team. Now, can they run it back with the exact same core in terms of the exact same roster and make zero changes? I think if you walk into next season with a relatively same roster, you're kind of just being a little bit ignorant. So I do think that the ownership of the Suns will make minor tweaks and adjustments to the roster, and I do think Phoenix can bounce back and still win a championship in the Kevin Durant era. But Kevin Durant, who's dealt with a lot of injuries, torn Achilles, broken foot, multiple lower body injuries, since leaving Golden State, being in Brooklyn and Phoenix, the injuries are adding up, and we're seeing Kevin Durant is a little bit of a lesser version of himself, and, he's going to be 36 years old, and are you going to take the over or under on Kevin Durant playing 4 more years of NBA basketball? I mean, that's a tough bet to make. I mean, we could be in a situation where Kevin Durant only plays 2 to 3 more seasons in the NBA. And you have to wonder, is this Phoenix Suns core good enough to win a championship? And we're left scratching our heads a little bit. Like, it's an unknown. Could it happen? Yes, it could. But the reality is, like, even if Kevin Durant were to get traded somewhere else, like a Miami or Oklahoma City, that's another potential year of growing pains and trying to learn the system, get acclimated with new teammates. Like, at this point, I think Kevin Durant is best suited sticking it out in Phoenix and trying to make it work with Devin Booker, because I think those two are excellent together. But Durant, he seems to be running out of time. He's a lesser version of himself. He's getting older, and the Phoenix Suns roster right now, they don't have a lot of flexibility in terms of the cap situation. And Kevin Durant, along with Devin Booker, they're going to have to find a way to make this situation work. And you were thinking, okay, Kevin Durant, after he left Golden State, it seemed like he was on pace to potentially be a top 10 NBA player of all time. However, with how Kevin Durant's career is finishing and how he's kind of limping to the finish line in a way. Now, I don't mean to be rude there, because I think Durant is still excellent, and I don't think a lot of the problems that have happened in Brooklyn and Phoenix have mainly been on Kevin Durant. Could Kevin Durant be a little bit better? Sure, no doubt about it, but Kevin Durant is still giving you, 28, 27 points per game on crazy efficiency? Like, I don't think Durant's the problem. Like, so if anything, the Phoenix Suns probably would be a borderline play-in team without Kevin Durant, if we're being honest. And we saw in Brooklyn, when he did not play games, they were winning about, 28% of their games? They were awful. They were terrible. And they're still not a good basketball team right now. But I don't know. It seemed like in Brooklyn, at some point, maybe Durant was going to figure it out. It seemed like in Phoenix, oh boy, Kevin Durant, this is a home run move. Devin Booker is still on the roster. The Suns have some great parts. They were just in the NBA Finals not too long ago. But there just seems to be something off with this team. And can Kevin Durant still go on an all-time great playoff run? And we have to also ask the question, is the lesser version of Kevin Durant still good enough to win an NBA championship with him being the best player on the team? Because that's a question that Durant is going to have to answer. And the older you get, the harder it is for you to essentially carry a basketball team. There's a lot of mileage on Kevin Durant's legs. And it seems like Phoenix just relied a lot on him this past year. And, by the time the playoffs rolled around, he was still being asked to do a lot, but against an elite defense in Minnesota. And despite how great he was, he just couldn't overcome the deficiencies of their roster. And time's running out because, Durant's not getting any younger, like I said. So, do I think Kevin Durant still can win a championship? Absolutely. However, we have to admit, time is running out. And maybe in the next 2 years, Kevin Durant could say, you know what? I'm satisfied with my overall resume. And I'm just going to hang it up and ride off into the sunset. And I don't care what anyone thinks. That could be a possibility. But I'm interested to see how much longer Kevin Durant plays. I would encourage Kevin Durant to try to play at least until he's 40. Because I think Kevin Durant, as a basketball artist / genius, has a chance to really, knife into the scoring record books. I think that he has an outside chance, if he really wants to catch Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the all-time scoring list and potentially go down as the second all-time leading scorer behind LeBron James, because unfortunately LeBron, he's played a lot more games and he still has a lot left in the tank. He's probably not catching LeBron on the all-time scoring list. And I think Durant, if he's still excellent for the next couple of years or so, he can mess around and win a championship. I think that there is a possibility, if luck breaks his way, that can happen with him being the best player on the team, but only time will tell, and we shall see. But the reality is Kevin Durant's running out of time.